Hello, and welcome back to Inside the Contract. We are now on season 2. This is episode 3 of season 2. In today's episode, we examine one of the most significant risk allocation mechanisms in the FIDIC 2017 forms, which is the exceptional event, formerly known as force majeure. This is not merely a change in terminology. It reflects a deliberate move toward contract-defined, globally consistent treatment of extreme disruptive events. Instead of relying on how force majeure might be understood under the different legal systems, okay? Earlier FIDIC editions used force majeure, a term that often carries jurisdiction-specific legal baggage. In civil law jurisdictions, force majeure is frequently codified and tightly defined. In common law systems, it generally has no automatic legal meaning unless defined in the contract. So outcomes can turn heavily on wording and interpretation. FIDIC 2017 responds by using more contract-neutral label, exceptional events, and framing entitlement primarily through contract criteria rather than external doctrine. The result is a self-contained mechanism where entitlement flows from contractual criteria rather than external legal interpretation. Clause 18.1 defines an exceptional event using 4 cumulative conditions. All must be met. The event must be beyond the affected party's control, unforeseeable at the contract date, unavoidable and not reasonably overcome, and not substantially attributable to the other party. Clause 18.1 also provides a non-exhaustive list of examples, war or hostilities, terrorism, natural catastrophes, and certain governmental actions and or restrictions, but the label alone is not enough. The 4-part test still governs. So what does not qualify in this case? Equally important is understanding what does not constitute an exceptional event. Typically excluded are the following: labor or material shortages arising from market conditions. These are commercial risks unless directly caused by an exceptional disruption. Price escalation, inflation, or currency fluctuation. These are contractor risks unless a contract-specific cost escalation mechanism exists. Third, routine permitting or approval delays. These fall under employer delays or contractor delays, dependent on responsibility, but they are not exceptional events. These are generally regarded as commercial or operational risks unless the underlying cause itself qualifies as an exceptional event. Disputes frequently arise when parties attempt to recharacterize commercial difficulties as exceptional. Tribunals and the DAPs consistently examine the root cause, not the downstream impact. Okay? When an exceptional event genuinely prevents or delays the performance, the contract provides 2 main categories of relief. One, time, or relief from performance, where delay or prevention is proven and the event satisfies clause 18.1. And second, cost recovery only in defined scenarios. It is not automatic for every exceptional event, and the entitlement depends on the event type and the wording of the applicable 2017 form or the particular conditions if they are modified. So the practical rule is EOT is the most common, most defensible relief, while cost requires very tight contractual grounding, plus causation, plus records, and may only be available for particular categories of events. Okay? Clause 18.2 imposes a specific notice requirement. The affected party must issue notice within 14 days of becoming aware or when it should have become aware of the exceptional event. This is shorter than the standard claim notice timeline under Clause 20, which is commonly discussed as 28 days from awareness for a notice of a claim. So it must be treated as a high priority compliance step. Late or unclear notice can become a major battleground. The other party may argue time bar, prejudice, or lost mitigation opportunity. So notice discipline is essential. Please, guys, keep this in mind. This is the first step to establishing or attempt to establish some sort of entitlement. Exceptional events do not suspend the duty to act reasonably. Okay? Clause 18.3 requires both parties to, first, use reasonable efforts to minimize delay, to mitigate the effects of the event where practicable. For contractors, this may involve resequencing works or seeking alternative supply routes. For employers, it may involve, facilitating access or adjusting administrative constraints. While Clause 18 explains why performance was affected, mitigation determines how much relief is justified. Okay, a recurrent source of failed claims is confusing exceptional events with commercial hardship. Exceptional risk is typically external, systematic, and contract test driven, like shutdown orders, embargoes, hostilities, extreme restrictions. Commercial risk is usually market based, inflation, supply demand imbalance, routine logistics, and the like. Decision makers test foreseeability and reasonable prevention and overcoming. Economic pain alone rarely satisfies the Clause 18.1 threshold. Okay? Keep that in mind. COVID-19 became a real stress test for the exceptional event provisions globally. In many projects, parties could establish an exceptional event where binding government measures prevented performance, especially lockdowns, border closures, or mandatory shutdown orders. But for cost, outcomes were much more evidence-driven, even where time relief was justified. Cost recovery often turned on a couple of things. First, the specific contract wording. Second, proof of causation. And third, contemporaneous records showing the additional cost was actually incurred because of the qualifying event. So the lesson is, exceptional event may not open the door. Records and causation decide how far you walk through. All right? Okay, just to close, exceptional events are not a general escape mechanism. They provide targeted relief for extraordinary disruptions. Only where, for example, Clause 18.1 criteria are met, Clause 18.2 notices are on time, Clause 18.3 mitigation is demonstrable, and any resultant EOT and or payment claim is properly advanced through Clause 20 procedures with evidence. Okay? So time is very important in establishing entitlement, with notices and compiling records in case you want to go further with the claim. Okay? So by this, we come to the conclusion of episode 3, Thank you for watching. In the next episode, we turn to one of the most influential roles in the entire contract, the engineer, as the initial decision maker, including the practical impact of clause 3.7 and the growing debate around neutrality and authority. Again, thank you and see you next time.